G'day everyone and welcome to this second and final part of the TAMIYA frog build. Alright, step 7, I'm going to start the gearbox and assemble the spur gear and drive gear. And just like that, that's step 7 done. Bearings are in there. This little ring is pictured here that holds the gear on. It's pretty easy to slip over, so that's no drama. And of course that's going to go with the biggest pinion gear that they give you for the minute until something bigger arrives. Alright, step 8 is next, and that is putting the diff and half the gearbox together. And here's all the bits, as well as the gearbox we're going to need for step 8. Alright, and there's step 8, all in one piece. I put a tiny dollop of grease on each of these ones, just so even though they get screwed in there, just so they hold still while I was assembling it. And make sure you put plenty of grease in the bevel gears, the little ones there, in the plastic part before you drop them in, and that'll hold them in as well, so that even though there's grease on the larger gear, you want to make sure there's some grease in those little pins where they seat, just to make sure they're not dry, and yeah, that they've got some sort of lube in there for when they spin. So that's step 8 done. Next is step 9, which putting the other half of the gearbox and the spur gear on. So step 9, a bit involved with this one. You need these hollow tubes, there's 5 of them in one bag so you can't really miss them. A little solid shaft for the spur gear in another bag. 3x25 screws and nylock nuts, which is, I'm pretty sure it's a change. In the original kit it used to be the knurled nuts without the nylock, so that's a change. The second half of our bevel gear, we'll need of course our spur, our gearbox that we've done so far, and the other plate, which I forgot to mention on the previous step, that you do need the first plate. And there we have the gearbox put together. Step 9 done. And just remember, when you put it in the gearbox, these 4 screws, even though I didn't bother with that one because one was enough to hold it together for me, but then 4 come out to then mount it, and that'll be the next step, step 10. Okay, so not as many screws needed for step 10. I do have these super duper long ones that need to hold the gearbox in, and that's exactly what we're doing, putting the gearbox into the chassis. And that didn't take long at all. Step 10's done. As I said, the long ones are in there, and once I put them 4 in, I backed off these 3 gearbox nuts just to let them be free, and then reset them just to make sure everything was nice and square. And also these ones here went in very easily, but just feel for that stop, and then as soon as you do, have a look at it. Both mine were like probably an eighth of a turn off where they need to be, so just that extra little nip, straighten them up so they're nice and fairly level. And I also did slip in the battery holder just so to stop this battery door flopping all over the place. So that's step 10 done. Step 11 is just putting the boots over the drive shafts, which, as I said, for the moment I don't really want to do because that'll take away from speed, but I think for stock I might have to, so I'll just install them anyway and show you what that looks like when I come back. Okay, and there's step 11 done. Drive shafts are in the boots and they're cut. One thing I would say with these is to put a bit of normal grease. They say anywhere grease in the instructions. I'm just using normal grease, the normal gear grease for the going in there. And when you're putting them in, like, grease up the ball first and then push it in. I find it easiest to squeeze the rubber as close as you can and then give it a bit of a wiggle as you push, and it'll pop in there fairly easy. That's step 11 done. Step 12 is assembling the rear arms. Alright, so step 12, got all the bits here, basically our outputs and half shafts, the bearings, a bunch of O-rings to hold it in, which is funny that you use 2 on one side, 3 all up on one side and 2 only on the other. That's an interesting setup. We've got, of course, our drive shafts and our swing arms. And here is step 12. All put together. They're both the drive shafts. All connected. Half shafts in. It's very loosey-goosey for the minute. So next is putting these onto the chassis in step 13, which will just require our 2 metal mounts and bag B and 4 3x10 self-tapping screws, if this comes into focus. With the arms attached, step 13 now done, and everything's moving fairly alright. It does feel a little bit notchy, but that's probably just going to take a few runs for that to all soften up and bed in properly. So that's that done. Next is step 14, 15 and 16 will be putting the shocks together and on the car. Now, these aren't like the old shocks that had all sorts of interesting techniques. These are just like a standard shock. So I'm not going to go through the building of that. There's plenty of other, I've gone through building shocks. There's plenty of others that have gone through it. So I'm just going to build the shocks and put them on the car. So there'll be step 16 where I'll be coming back. Okay, so here's up to step 16, the rear shocks installed. As said, pretty much a standard shock build, nothing too special with them. Different end cap, different springs, but everything goes together pretty much the same as normal. And it's not my finest job, definitely some air in the shocks still, even though I did let them sit for quite a while. And everything moves much nicer now they're attached. Okay, so now it's done, on to step 17, which is attaching the pinion to the motor. And there's step 17 done. Basically just putting the pinion on the motor and the fibre guard, dirt guard, whatever they call it, on the motor. And as I've mentioned in other videos, when mounting up the pinion, just to be on the safe side, I've already double checked this, and it took a few checks to get it exactly right. I did go off what Tamiya said for the measurement, but then just as a last resort, let's put it in there. Now, I don't know how it will come on camera, but that is pretty much exactly lined up, and that was, I think, slightly off what they said. So yeah, it's always a good idea just to double check just by putting the motor there before you put the cover on, and then you can see exactly how it lines up, which I'm pretty sure. The next page. Yep, step 18 is installing the motor. So step 18 is just these 4 screws, the motor cover or pinion cover, one side of the battery holder, your motor, and of course chassis. And quick as you like, there's step 18 done. Motor's installed, the motor cover on, or pinion cover, and one half of the battery holder. Next is step 19, which is an interesting one. We'll be putting in the servo and the radio gear and the other side of the battery holder. And here's the servo mounted. They say just to use 2 screws, so that's what I've done. I did have to chop away just the very corner of the servo ears, as it was sort of pushing the servo over, so it was sort of difficult to get the screw in. But it was just like, seriously, just at the very edge there, you can just see, just chipped off. And then the next step is step 20 and 21, which is the steering links and the servo saver. So I think I'll just do them now, just so they're out of the way, because I can have that just sitting on there and then take it off with one screw and readjust it if it's not straight. Okay, and here's pretty much up to step 21 done. The servo saver's on and being adjusted so that the wheels are fairly straight, a little bit of toe out, but I can play with that when I get it out and actually run it. Because of the size of that speed controller, I mounted it down here where they sort of want you to do the receiver, and the receiver, which just fell through there, which is a little Fly Sky one. It'll go down here when the plate underneath is mounted. I'll mount that in on there, which is good because it gets all the wires down there out of the way. So yeah, pretty much got a car. Just wheels and tires now. So that'll be the next step, 22 to 25 pretty much, is doing the wheels and tires. And if you want to see how these classic Tamiya tires go together, go and check out my Tamiya Grasshopper build when I got to the wheels of that, because it's the exact same process. So we'll be back when they're all together. Is the wheels and tires. Fronts aren't here right now, I'll get them in a second. They're done, they're nice and easy. These backs, I've done these wheels and tires many times in the past, and never have I had the trouble I've had with trying to get these inners in this time. I don't know if it's because it's winter here, if I'm just getting old and soft and weak, I just don't know, but I am just not having any luck with getting these things in here. Even tried heating them up in hot water to make the tire softer. No. I have a feeling last time I actually used a big pair of like flat nose pliers, like the real wide ones, and like basically pushed down with my palm of my hand on the wheel, and then use the pliers to grip the rubber and pull it up over, because just trying to get these on, I literally almost ripped, you can't see it now, but this finger was almost raw from trying to pull that rubber tire over. So I gave up on them. I've got other tires already mounted that are the same, and I actually want to use the Subaru Brat ones, so they'll be going on it for the moment, for at least for the road runs. So tires, the aerial will be in step 25, as well as putting on all these bits, which I'll wait to get the other wheels. And then 26 is going to be getting on this underplate so I can mount the receiver. So I'll get them on now, get the wheels on, and then we'll have a look at the finished chassis. And with that done, that's pretty much the Frog finished. As you can see, it all done here. So thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.